Hi, welcome. Apologies for the delay. We had a bit of hiccups here with these wild and crazy panelists. But I'm happy to finally welcome you to the Spring 18 Developer Preview. So I love that you all took the time to register and attend and bear with us through these couple of minutes while we were arranging things here in the studio. But let's not waste any more time to get to the forward-looking statement. Yay! So as you know, it is not a genuine Salesforce event unless we have the forward-looking statement. And the reason it's there is to say that make sure to make any purchasing decisions based on what's currently available and in release. So with that said, if you have any further questions on our forward-looking statement or for any topics that might be relevant for the Spring 18 release for developers, let us know. Check us out on Twitter and use the hashtag #SalesforceLive. And we are monitoring all questions now live. So if you get your questions in soon enough, we'll be able to ask our lovely panelists here today. One thing to note, if something goes by too quickly, or if you had a slide that you wanted to check into later on, go ahead and relax. Don't worry about taking notes right now. We are going to be putting the entire webinar or the broadcast on Salesforce Live a few days after this event. So don't worry about it. We're always going to be online on Twitter if you have further questions, and we'll always have this information ready for you. So with no further ado, I'd love to introduce our panelists today, or let them introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Renee.
I'm allowed to? Okay. My name is Renee, and I will talk to you about new and enhanced APIs, as well as Einstein Platform Services.
My name is Zane, and I'm excited to be talking to you about features for platform development in Lightning.
I'm Dilip Burki, and I'm really excited to talk to you about Salesforce DX.
And then, Renee, do you want to go over what you're going to be talking about today?
Absolutely. So I'm covering a couple of slides today and a couple of demos on Einstein Platform Services, as well as a complete new API around IoT Explorer, as well as new enhancements that cover the User Interface API and the Salesforce Console Integration Toolkit. Having said that, I would say let's go into demos, because that's what we're here for. So Einstein Platform Services is a new offering that we GA'd with Spring 18 that allow you to detect objects within an image. And a real common use case for this is, for example, in retail, where companies want to make sure that products are aligned in the shelf, in the correct row, in the correct order with other products. And this example image that you see here is some training data that we prepared for this. So oat cereal boxes, cornflake boxes, and so forth. And we use then this data to train Einstein object detection to allow us to detect those boxes within another given images. So for doing this, we are using the Einstein Platform Playground. The Playground itself is an open source project. You can grab it from GitHub and install it into any org of your choice to get hands-on with Einstein Platform Services. So when I go now to the Object Detection tab, you see that I already prepared a data set for the Alpine cereal boxes. And based on this data set, I created a model, which then is used by Einstein Platform Services to detect if in a given image an object is available. So by going to the Prediction tab and uploading a file, in this case from my local file system with other cereal boxes, I'm now letting Einstein Platform Services detect the objects within the image. In a real-life situation, this could be, for example, a shop employee using the Salesforce mobile app directly in front of the shelf. So what you see here is now that Platform Services highlighted 3 boxes. It identified 2 oat cereal and 1 cornflakes box within this image. By going to the raw JSON data, you see that we get a list of probabilities. So Einstein Object Detection allows you to detect the number of given objects within an image, as well as their location. So you can then use this information to either count, do I have the right amount of objects, in this example products, in the shelf, or do I have them in the wrong order? Right? So it's a really nice feature that we introduced there. We also added a couple of metric APIs, like this one for model epoch details, labels, training accuracy, that you also can grab in this open source project. So it's highly encouraged that you install that directly into the org of your choice and get hands-on with this. Now moving on from Einstein Platform Services, a complete new topic, IoT. And we have a company here that is called Pure Lowy. And Pure Lowy is using moisture sensors on their harvest fields to detect the moisture level on those fields. And they're using for this IoT Explorer. We GA'd this product in winter 18, and now with Salesforce IoT and the new REST API, a complete new management capabilities are available. So if you haven't played with Salesforce IoT yet, I will give you a short introduction first how it works. So when I go into IoT and setup, the first thing that you have to do is to define a context. And a context is basically a mapping between a platform event, which is moisture sensor data, and in this case a sensor ID as a common shared key between the platform event data and the harvest field, which represents a custom object in the Salesforce org. So with this information, some Salesforce IoT can map platform event data from IoT devices to custom records within Salesforce. Now this context is then taken from IoT Explorer within an orchestration. And an orchestration is basically a set of rules, which means once a platform event is fired, and in this case a given condition is detected, like a threshold of a moisture sensor level, a business action is executed. And in this case it is setting the value of a field status to warning. Now this is really nice. Now that you have this UI, but now with Spring 18, we're taking this a step further for you by introducing the complete new REST API for this. And to show a REST API, what is better than going to Postman, because we want to see some real REST code. By calling the new /IoT endpoint in the API, I'm now able to see the base context objects that we offer, like full access to context, to orchestrations, as well as usage data. So when I execute the usage request, I get now an overview what the limit of platform events for my IoT Explorer implementation is, as well how many events, for example, have been processed in this organization. But we're not stopping there. We're also giving you the full capability to configure any kind of orchestration within your Salesforce organization. So if you remember, we had a rule for normal that allowed you to listen on an event of type moisture sensor, and when a given condition is detected, it is going to change the state on a Salesforce record of type harvest field, right? And you can not only get this data via the REST API, you can also use this to configure IoT Explorer fully automatically, which is really exciting. Going to a complete new topic, because we're talking about many APIs that we are changing now with Spring 18, is the UI API. And this is something that I personally really love, right? You want to integrate Salesforce data within custom web applications or custom mobile applications. And the UI API enables you to fetch all data for these for the records that are not only data, but also layout data, right? So you can rebuild the Salesforce UI just using the UI API. By opening this recent record, I'm getting now a layout that looks quite similar to what you see in Salesforce, right? I mean, 2 columns, we have labels translated for my language, and when I go to the JSON data, which is at the bottom of the screen, you see that all this UI information is delivered in a single REST call, including the data of the record. So this is really nice, and we introduced this user interface API a couple of releases ago. But now we're also bringing list views to the user interface API, which enables your users to have the same UI experience across multiple applications, within Salesforce or within your custom web application, for example. So let's go further and Let's have a look at the UI API in Postman. By calling the new endpoint list-UI and appending the API name of the account object as well as the API name of the layout view, I can then get all metadata as well as record data in one single call. So you can then rebuild the columns with localized labels, my own user preferences for those columns, as well as the record data in a single call. And I think that's a really huge enhancement that will give your users the same experience by using their Salesforce data, no matter in which kind of application they are in, which is really great. Last but not least, let's talk a bit about Salesforce Console. We introduced last year Lightning Console, which is a huge productivity boost for your users. But we also know that you invested heavily in using Visualforce pages, in using Classic Console. So some people would say, okay, I can just drop this Visualforce page with my custom JavaScript code in Lightning and it will work. So sadly, when I click on Close this tab, it's not working, right? So, and this is a feature gap, and you couldn't take your investment to Lightning. Now with Spring 18, we enable you to take your investment from Visualforce to the Lightning Console. And it is one minor change that you have to do for this. I'm just opening this Visualforce page. I'm going to edit. And the only thing that I have to do is I have to change the API version from 41 to 42. I'm now saving my Visualforce page. I'm reloading the Lightning Console. And in a second, this Visualforce page loads. There we go. And I can close the tab. Without any modification, just changing the API version, you're taking the investment further. And that's so far with the demos.
So that was one digit you just changed in that latest demo, right? I
Exactly.
just want to underline that.
Yes, one digit.
So that was really great that you went through this, and I'm sure that was so much work previously. So it must be a breeze for folks now. I know that Kamyar on the Lightning team is also very excited about UI APIs, and we recently had a webinar on that topic as well. So if people here are interested in the most recent topic that Rene just covered, be sure to check that out. It's really interesting, and he gives a lot of context and a lot of concrete details about how to go further with the UI API. If you're interested in anything else that Rene just covered, check out the blog post that was just put up, or the blog post that was put up regarding Einstein object detection. And this is, you wrote this, right?
Exactly, yeah, some time ago, yes.
But this is a part of a wealth of information regarding Einstein in general that you can find on the Salesforce developers blog. We also have a couple of other Trailhead modules, and I think you wrote one of them as well. Is that right?
Yeah, the one that you see on screen.
Right.
So, exactly.
So the one on the left is the Build a Cat Rescue app that recognizes cat breeds. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, it's a project that uses Einstein image classification, one of the other Einstein platform services that we are offering. And it allows you to, it showcases how you can incorporate Einstein image classification into processes in your Salesforce org. And we put a bit of fun on this, right? So that's why it recognizes cat breeds and not some retail products.
Well, the moment you have it for dog breeds, I am totally doing it in milliseconds.
I would love to do it for dogs.
So how long does it take, roundabout, to do?
An hour.
An hour? That's
an hour.
That's fine. You can knock that out and get your badge.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about the second one, the Salesforce IoT Explorer Basics?
Yeah, so Salesforce IoT Explorer Basics gives you an introduction in how IoT Explorer works, and also a more in-depth view around orchestration, context, and how you can use this information within your Salesforce org. And also a bit about platform events.
Right. Platform events is really exciting. I'm sure when Zane talked about that at the recent developer keynote that happened a couple of months ago, and you can find recordings online if you're curious, I was really thrilled to see the response because there was spontaneous applause. when people were talking about it. So there's so much exciting stuff happening for developers for Salesforce. So if you do go through these 2 modules, and they'll all be available at the end of this broadcast, if you do have further questions as you build your own apps and you're become more familiar with it, feel free to ask these folks directly on Twitter. But you might get a faster response if you go to Stack Exchange, right? So,
yes, for sure.
And don't forget the Trailblazer community, which is super active and chock full of MVPs. So I think with that note, that's quite a chunk of the Spring 18 release that you covered very, very quickly. But let's go to Zane, and you'll share more about what's happening with Lightning, or what the highlights of Spring 18 for Lightning.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to look a little bit at some of the changes with the look and feel of Lightning. We're going to look a little bit at some changes in where you can take your Lightning components, and then even how you're building those Lightning components and what it takes to get complex bits of UIs in front of your users. So just like Renee, we're here to see things in action. So I'm going to show you all of this in a few different demos. So let's hop into the first demo. I'm here in Dreamhouse, which is a sample application that is built by Salesforce and provided to help you understand ways you can build apps on the platform. And in Dreamhouse, we're looking at a property record page, and we're talking about some of the changes to the look and feel with Lightning. And in Winter, we introduced the idea of theming in Lightning Experience, which among some of the other changes brought, say, a colorful blue background into Lightning. And you could opt out in Winter and turn that background image off to go back to a more familiar white look and feel if that was right for your company. And in Dreamhouse in Winter, they actually did that. They disabled background images. But we're in Spring now in Dreamhouse, and what happens is if you disabled those background images in Winter, when you're upgraded to Spring, themes are on for everyone all the time. It's now a regular part of Lightning Experience, but the look and feel doesn't really change because the theme that's going to be activated by default is called Salesforce Light, and it has a white background. If you opted into keeping that background image, your theme, of course, is going to look the way you expect it to. But also in Spring are some other UI changes that as developers you're going to want to be aware of. One of these is right here on this record page. We can see that in the right-hand column, these components are no longer one big bar. We can see each component more distinctly with these outlines and drop shadows. And the UI changes might be even more obvious on, say, an application page, like our Property Explorer right here, where we can see each piece of this page as a distinct part with these drop shadows and outlines, for the most part. And with Lightning Light, these might be subtle changes, but something else we also introduced in Spring, if we go to Setup, and then I search for Themes and Branding, you're going to see that we're now offering you many more themes to choose from right out of the box. The color palettes are really different. They're really full of variety. We even have one that changes every season if you're adventurous.
That's cool.
And we're also giving you the ability to build your own theme. You can build a custom theme that matches your company's branding if you want. So if your company might want to revisit the conversation around theming, as a developer, you might want to see what that's going to do for your org. So here in Dreamhouse, I'm going to enable a more colorful theme, say Cloudy Sky. And something I can do in Spring is I can choose to preview this right here from Setup. So when I enter a preview, it means I get to see what the more colorful theme will look like. I can navigate around our entire org, but this isn't affecting any of my users. I haven't done anything to change the actual active theme. This is just for me to test out what's happening, which is pretty great. So if I go back to my Property Explorer now with my new colorful theme, I can see that we have a bit of a problem here. Now I'm seeing that this component that just looked a little different before is pretty much disappearing into the background. And I'm not sure why, say, my days on the market chart right below it looks great, but my calculator above doesn't. So let's go jump into the code and see why that might be. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code, and here we have our components open. And I'm going to look at the markup for our property days on the market component. That's the one that showed up correctly on that application page. And I can see right here on line 18, I'm styling this component with Lightning Card, which is a base component. And these base Lightning components inherit styling from the Salesforce Lightning design system automatically. And the Lightning Card component specifically has the right styling for your components to show up correctly no matter what theme is enabled. So that's why this component looks okay. And if I jump over to the mortgage calculator component, I can see I'm using Lightning-based components, but I'm not using Lightning Card. So that's why the styling isn't being applied correctly. So does that mean I have to go back and restyle all of my components to use Lightning Card? Thankfully, the answer is no.
That's good.
Yes, I don't have to do that. What I can do actually is I can go up to my outermost HTML right here, and I can just add a simple class attribute, and I can set that class attribute equal to live typing SLDS card.
That's what we want.
Right? So I'm going to save that change locally, and actually when I use the integrated terminal here and I do a push back up to my Scratch org, and then we go back, that's awesome, and we go back into Salesforce and we refresh. We see our changes didn't save, so that's fine. Let's just jump into the developer console. We'll do it more ways than one. And we're going to go again to our mortgage calculator. We'll add our class really quickly. And maybe you can tell us why that didn't work when we talk about DX.
I think there's a giant question coming for delete, right?
It's a segue to my session.
First question from the audience. Okay. And then we'll jump back into Salesforce and I'll refresh my page. And now I can see, ta-da, everything looks like it should, because I can apply that design styling right from Salesforce Lightning Design System to my Lightning component by using SLDS card. It also respects my custom styling. It's not going to interfere in any other way. So it's a quick way to check your components for compatibility. And it's a great thing to be aware of because with the Spring 18 enhancements to themes, it really lets you customize Lightning in a whole new way. So the next advancement in Lightning, which I'm really excited to jump into, is actually also in Pure Allo, which Renee just showed us. And it's a feature that we showed in the developer keynote because we talked about it when it was still in pilot. And it involves where you can take your Lightning components. And I'm taking us to Pure Allo because you can see here on our field management screen, which lets us get an overview of all the things that are going on in all of our harvest fields. And I can quickly take action right here, but Pure Allo actually wanted some enhancements around business logic. They wanted more control about how irrigation gets triggered. They wanted users to be able to have some input into when and how it would be triggered. And that's usually really a great use case for flow. So if I drill into the details, the record homepage for our Kale field, I can see actually here on the right-hand panel, I have a flow interview that lets me set very easily how long the irrigation should be going. I can decide when it should turn on, so I don't say, let's start spraying my colleagues who might be working in that field.
Unless you want to.
Yeah, unless, you know, it could be a fun change. And then I can actually see the message that's going to get sent out to everybody to let them know, hey, this thing is happening with irrigation. And when I hit next, we can see we have additional business logic about you've had to manually turn on irrigation in this field too many times. I can add some notes for maintenance if I want. And when I hit next, we can see that we've actually turned on irrigation in this field, but at a future point in time. All thanks to this flow interview. And the capability that I used here is actually this screen is a Lightning component, which some of you may have guessed because I get to use things like a Lightning accordion and some different kinds of date pickers, which is pretty awesome because in Spring, the capability to use your Lightning components in flow interviews is going to be GA. So let's go look at this in the code because it's really awesome. It's probably my favorite feature in Spring.
It's kind of hard to peek at. Is it possible to zoom in a bit?
Yeah. So here we have our markup for our irrigation component, and we can see right here on line 1 with this new interface, Lightning available for flow screens. This is how you get your components into your flow interviews. One interface. It's going to be GA. Everybody can use it. It's pretty awesome. So if we scroll down, we're going to see the actual markup for the component. I'm using some base Lightning components for my styling, and it's a pretty simple form in and of itself. It's pretty compact. And I'm using force record data to get Lightning Data Service on here to grab some field values, actually. And then I have quite a few attributes listed up above. And that's because when you're building components for use in flow, it's a good idea to start thinking about them as go-betweens. Go-betweens that sit between a user entering information and working in the UI and the rest of your flow interview. And the way you pass data back and forth between your Lightning component or a user and your flow interview are these attributes. And you can see this here on the design part of our component bundle. I have a subset, a smaller part of those attributes listed here as design attributes, like our start time when we want to start our irrigation. And that's because these are how you get your Aura attributes to be exposed in the Cloud Flow Designer. So these are the things that are going to show up for users that are working in that design interface. So let's go see what that actually looks like. Jump back into Salesforce, and here's our flow in the Cloud Flow Designer. And as we saw, our first screen, this tiny, tiny thing that we'll zoom in on in a second, is actually our irrigation management. Can you zoom again? Thank you. Okay, so we have our irrigation management screen here. It doesn't look that different from the rest of our flow screens, but when I drill into the actual content, we can see right here that it is actually based on a Lightning component. It's a new option that you can choose. And down here on our input and output tab, this is how I get at those attributes. And the way to think about your input tab is data that you want to send into your Lightning component. So here on the left-hand side, we can see these are actually my Aura attributes, but what's showing up isn't the name of that attribute, it's that label value. So it's good to get solid descriptions there in those labels so that users understand what they're working with. So I can see now here clearly my irrigation start time on the left-hand side, and then I can match it with values from my flow here on the right. So this default start time is actually a constant that I defined, which means then I can provide users with those nice touches they've come to expect from Flow, like having common values already filled out for me, so I don't have to do a lot of clicks and typing. And that's how I can do it right here. I can use information from my Flow, pass it into my Lightning component. And on the Outputs tab, I can do the same thing. I can take an attribute from my Lightning component and pass it on to something in my flow. So down here with our override count, I'm actually taking that data from Lightning Data Service and passing it into the rest of my flow. And then, when we get out of the screen, we can see that we can use that information to make a decision and then set the rest of our flow parameters. And that lets me avoid having to use an additional record update or fast lookup or S-object lookup here, which makes my whole flow more efficient. This combination of the power of Lightning components and the logic of flow together like never before. It's really exciting, and I can't wait to see what people get in a build. Yeah. The next enhancements are all about how you build your Lightning components. And I want to take us to another little simple app that's just all about Spring 18. That's actually just Codys Garden Supply. And at Codys Garden Supply, they are very, very close with their customers. And we often celebrate the completion of projects with, of course, barbecues. What says spring more like a barbecue? And we had the request for all people in our org to be able to update salient account details, like when they're having their next barbecue, from anywhere in the application. So sitting here on a contact record, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, I have my update account details form. And I can even say, oh, actually, the next barbecue is coming up on Saturday, tomorrow, and fill out any other information I need. And when I update, we can see that we get to save the record. I get a little notice. And if I navigate back to the account, I can see that, oh yes, I actually really did update that record, which is pretty cool. I can see the same thing if I say navigate to an opportunity. I have the same ability to choose when the next barbecue is, update the record right here. And in fact, it's so popular that our cases team has asked for that capability on cases. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to go into Setup right here, and I'm going to go edit this page and go into the Lightning App Builder. And the way I'm going to get this on the page, that thing looked a lot like a quick action or an object-specific action, but it's not object-specific. It's actually a custom component I built that I'm going to just drag onto my cases page right now. We'll go ahead and save, and we'll go ahead and activate. And when we go back, we can see that now we have our custom component right here on our cases. And that's because I'm using a new base Lightning component available in Spring that I want to show you right now. So let's go into the developer console and check it out. It lets me bring this on here on our update account component. And I want to drill into line 11. Right here is our Lightning record edit form. It gives us the ability to quickly and easily build interactive forms for users that, as the word edit implies, allow you to update and change data. And I can do it very quickly and easily. If we go into the controller code, because there is some controller code, it actually has nothing to do with saving our record. I wrote this controller code to give us that nice little success message, just so that users know they don't have to keep hitting the button. And the rest of the saving, the rest of the fetching the data is taken care of for me by using this Lightning record edit form, providing an object API name, giving an explicit record ID, and then using some other base Lightning components, this Lightning input field, which I can just then provide the API name of a field, and it shows up right here within my form. And then if something goes wrong with saving, I actually can display messages because I added Lightning messages right here. I don't have to do any other special error handling. And the way we're saving the record is I gave a Lightning button on my form with a type of submit. I could call it whatever I wanted, but as long as the type is submit, it means that the Lightning record edit form is going to take care of saving and updating the record for me, which is pretty cool. Another enhancement in Spring is actually something that really is going to affect our community. And so Codys Garden Supply has a little bit of a community, and we've actually had the request to share more information on this community, because when a customer is having a barbecue in the next week around Codys Garden Supply, that means the account rating changes to hot. So understandably, the most popular list view is the hot accounts list. And we've had a request to actually add the hot accounts list right to our community homepage so that everyone can see what's happening. And in the past, that would have taken quite a bit of work. We could do it, but it would have been a big ask. And I'm happy to say that in Spring, I can just go into my community builder, and we can go, when the community builder loads, we're going to go to our components section, and when we go, I'm going to search for this component, because we can see it's clear down at the bottom of this giant list that we provide for you, but I built a custom component called the hot accounts list, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it right onto the screen for my community, or not into space. We'll try that again. Drag it right onto my community, and we can see right here is a list view looking just like you would want for internal users, the same functionality, the same features. And how did I do that? Well, I think you're going to get even more excited when we go look at the code. So let's jump back into the developer console. And this is our hot accounts list. This is it.
Wow.
It's one Lightning-based component. It's Lightning list view right here. And I can provide an object name, and then the developer name or API name of the list view that I care about, and that's it. I can put this on any page in my Lightning application, and as we just saw, it fully supported in communities. I can then define the behavior of the list even more by choosing the number of rows, or whether or not I want to show actions or allow inline edit, but it is just this one Lightning-based component. That's it, no other code, which I think is a pretty awesome win for everyone.
Awesome. Yeah.
I could put this on a home page. It's huge. The last thing I want to show is actually related to this lonely little documentation tab here, which I know is Renee and my favorite tab in the Lightning Component Bundle, right?
Yes.
In the past, it's actually been a place where I think a lot of developers, we know we should document, we want to document, it helps our future selves, but finding where this Aura documentation tab actually ends up has been a bit of a question mark. But I added some documentation here for this component, even though it's pretty simple, because in Spring, now we have the ability to go to the Lightning Components library, which is going to be in beta for Spring, but the Lightning Components library pulls together all of the Lightning components available in your org in one place. And so it doesn't matter if it's coming from the Force namespace or the Lightning namespace or the UI namespace. All the different components you can use in Lightning are here for you to look at. You can see how do I use them, find more information about what are they meant for, see what is their scope. And in addition to all the components that are provided by Salesforce, your custom components show up here too. So that hot accounts list, that documentation tab that I finally filled out, is showing up right here. So now I've left a gift for my fellow developers. They know how to use it in App Builder or in code. We could put further business logic right here. And of course, all of the specifications are already done for me. It's pretty awesome.
I think people are over the moon about this one, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
What other solves were there before this came along?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is lovely. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all the things I have to show you in demo. And
Yeah, and there's so much more online. You guys have been pretty busy over on the blog creation department, haven't you?
A bit.
Yeah.
So in conjunction with this webinar that we have right now, there are also 2 additional blog posts focusing on highlights for Spring 18, especially for developers. And so I'm not sure who wrote them, but I think they're covering off topics such as focusing in on flow, and also building secure and interactive forms easier. So this is something that we've talked about already. And if you want to learn more, that's kind of where you're going to learn the latest and greatest about what really is exciting about these particular aspects for Spring 18. There are a couple of questions coming in, but I'll save them all until the end to give everybody enough time to kind of get any inquiries into you guys.
Sure.
The hashtag, again, as a reminder, is Salesforce Live. And with that, let's see here. Oh, I think another thing that's interesting is you dipped into the Pure Allo reference app, and we've been mentioning the Dreamhouse app. And I think a big shout out to Christoph, who has put so much work into making these 2 reference apps amazing. Absolutely. And there are a couple more reference apps available for developers to explore, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find them on GitHub, but I think actually the best place to watch lately is going to be the developer blog, because as they get updated to Spring 18, you're going to see those announcements there on the developers blog, and Christoph's going to walk you through all the changes.
Exactly.
Yes.
We have Dreamy Invest and also Northern Trail Outfitters, so 2 more than the mentioned ones.
Yeah, it's turning into a whole stable of really amazing reference apps that developers can use for their own purposes. So in addition to that, of course, this wouldn't be a Salesforce event without Trailhead modules.
Yeah.
So we have a couple here if you want to get started with a couple of the concepts that you jumped into today. So what you were showing kind of assumed somewhat of a familiarity with Lightning and Lightning components. And can you kind of give us a bit of an overview of this Lightning Components Basics module?
Yeah, so if you're not as familiar with Lightning Components, the Lightning Components Basics module is going to take you through some of the technical details about what are we talking about when we talk Lightning, and then how do I put together a Lightning component. And it really takes you through that and makes you think through some patterns. And then the other module we have, of course, is about screen flow distribution, which if you aren't familiar with flow and all the different places you can use it, this is a new badge, which is awesome, and it really takes you through all the different places you can incorporate flow and why you might want to use flow. And it's pretty great too.
Yeah. A lot of people have been excited about flow, so I'm sure they can't wait to get started and get that badge, in addition to the other 3 that we just mentioned. So with that in mind, thank you again for sharing what you're finding for the highlights for Spring 18. And this is Salesforce DX has been such a hot topic across the board. So many developers in the community have loved Salesforce DX and CI/CD, and we're really happy right now to be having Dilip here talking about what's new for Salesforce DX in Spring 18. So I'll let you walk through it. So.
Thanks, Arabella. And hello, everyone, once again. And before I get started, I want to extend from the Salesforce DX team a sincere, heartfelt thanks for everything that you're doing in the community. Your blogs, your tweets, your feedback, both positive and critical, have been incredibly helpful. We welcome them. Please, please, please continue to do that. With that, what's some of the highlights for Spring 18 from a Salesforce DX standpoint? If you're a Salesforce partner and you're familiar with the Partner Edition orgs, like Partner Developer Edition or Partner Enterprise Edition, you can now create scratch orgs using these capabilities. And we think this will go a step further in improving your experience with scratch orgs. There have been many of you that are working in the government cloud, in the public cloud. The ability to create scratch orgs in these environments can be immensely helpful, and we are offering that as part of Spring 18. Along the realm of Apex, we are continuing to invest in terms of making enhancements. So this is something that we know is near and dear to your heart. So we are offering list.contains, list.indexOf, and we'll continue to invest and offer more things in upcoming releases. Sandbox cloning, the ability to create new sandbox orgs using an existing sandbox instance to copy and clone the settings, is something that we are doing in open beta. We're really excited about this. We wish you give this a shot and let us know what you think of this.
But the big news.
And the big news, the thing that I'm most excited to talk about is developer control packages going open beta.
I don't know. We need to pause because these guys are dancing, and I want to give them a moment.
and I want to pause here, and this is a culmination of a lot of effort, a lot of conversations that we have had with our developer community. And as you know, historically, packaging has been a Salesforce partner-centric functionality, but there is so much goodness to packaging that when we designed Salesforce DX, we wanted to offer a mechanism for doing packaging for everyone. So whether you're an enterprise customer, a Salesforce consultant, a system integrator, or a Salesforce partner, there are different flavors of packaging that will make it much easier for you to organize and get into the true modular development that Salesforce DX has been preaching. So with that, taking a step further, you might be thinking, I've heard about packaging too, I've heard about second generation packages, I've heard about managed packages. What is developer control package? Can you help me fit this in? So if you look at Salesforce DX and the packaging technology that we're building as part of it, there are two broad flavors. The first one is what we call the managed or the ISV second generation packages, which is geared more towards Salesforce partners that want to build and list their apps on App Exchange. And there's a second flavor of packaging that's being built ground up, which we call the developer control packages, which is geared towards customers. I'm going to spend the rest of the session talking about DCPs because that's the one that's going open beta. But I want you to know that you're seeing a lot of names and we will clean them up. Renee and Zane are working with us in terms of creating a lot of blog posts. But hey, this is a developer webinar. Let's not worry about terms. Let's get to the meat of what this is. So what's a developer control package? A DCP is a container for you to organize your metadata. As part of your development process, you will be developing code, you'll be developing metadata, and you want to distribute that, right? And you want to deploy that into scratch arcs, into sandbox, you do CI, you do user acceptance testing, and you finally want to deploy it into a production instance. Before packaging, what you had was metadata deploys, change sets, which don't give you a life cycle in terms of how you manage these changes. And developer control packages, or DCPs, for the first time, offers that capability for our entire customer base. And before I even get into the merits of developer control packages, I want to talk about two core use cases that it hits upon. The first use case it hits upon is, I'm building a new app. I'm building a material requisition app, or I'm buying an expense management app for my employees. How do I develop this, test it, and distribute it, and iterate on it? Yeah. Like you may have multiple production logs. How do I go about doing that? DCPs handles that use case. The second use case it organizes, in many conversations that I've had with lots of customers, you have thousands of components, or in fact, tens of thousands of components, Visualforce pages, Lightning pages, Apex classes. It's all there in the unpackaged metadata. How do you start organizing them using DCPs? The developer control packages that we are offering addresses both these use cases. So whether you have an existing base of Salesforce customizations or you're building something net new, you can take advantage of DCPs. And you might be wondering at this stage, okay, this is all great, it's addressing the use case, but why should I invest in this? What's the benefit? Why is DCPs uniquely geared towards handling this? The first thing is, it's a source-driven development model that Salesforce DX is following. DCPs is built on top of everything that is Salesforce DX. So the Salesforce CLI, the Salesforce scratch arcs, the source-driven development system that we have built, all of them work seamlessly with developer control packages. The single biggest value proposition is iterating and version management. If you do a change set deployment or a metadata deployment, once you do the deployment is, the metadata changes are just distributed into the org, and you have no mechanism of tracking it. With packaging, you create new versions of the package, you can iterate over this, and you can say, I'm going to install version 3.4 on this production instance while I will install 3.3 in another instance. The ability to iterate over changes and to have this version management system makes developer control packages very compelling. We have made it incredibly easy for you to add, modify, and remove components so that it's very easy for you to iterate. With an immutable artifact that packaging provides, it becomes much easier for you to put together a continuous integration system, which I'll be highlighting a little more as we go along. And dependency management. Packaging provides a mechanism for you to say, here's my financial package, and it depends on my ERP core. Or here's my particular expense management module that I'm building, and I want it to depend on this utility package that I have. So dependency management is built into DCPs, which makes it much easier for you to do modular development. And finally, with all this, change tracking, change management becomes built in as part of Salesforce DX and DCPs. In summary, developer control packages for the first time offers you a mechanism to do repeatable, scriptable, trackable way of doing development and tracking changes. Now, before I jump into the demo to show how this works, let me go back to those two use cases. I said initially that if you're building a net new app, you can use DCPs. How would you go about doing this? You don't have to start from scratch. You can build upon everything that you're already doing with Salesforce DX and add this as an additional layer. So you already have your local workspace, you have your Salesforce CLI installed, you're having the version control system, and you're familiar with using scratch arcs to do development. Once you have done development and you're ready to get into the testing phase, instead of just doing a metadata deploy, you will create a package. And when you create a package, you get an immutable artifact that you will now install as part of your CI. You will then install them into UAT, and quite likely that you'll find a bug here and there.
Never.
And you can go back and reiterate on this, right? It's much, much easier for you to create a package version. It's a single CLI command to create a new package version. So you can come up with this iterative process. And finally, when the build or the version passes all tests, you'll deploy or install that same package version into your production org. That's one piece of the puzzle. The single biggest advantage of packaging is the way you can iterate over changes. So you get the next request from your business team to add a new feature. You can go back to the same metadata that represents your version 1 of your package. You'll create scratch arcs, do CI runs, go through UAT, and when you're ready, you will install this as a version on top of your existing package. So in that format, you'll start developing newer versions of the package that gets installed in your production org. This makes developing or managing new apps much easier. Now let's go back to the more difficult problem. This is something that has come up in many, many conversations. Salesforce DX is great. I have 10,000 components in my unpackaged metadata. How do I get started? And again, Renee and Zane are working on a lot of blogs. We'll be sharing a lot of information as to how we get started. I just want to use this as an opportunity to tell you conceptually how we envision you seeing this. If you see your production org today, it has a set of AppExchange apps that you have installed and the metadata associated with it. And then the rest of the metadata, however you might have named it, is still this, what we call the unmanaged metadata, or what we call internally the happy soup. For those of you that may already know, even when you're installing an AppExchange app, you're actually installing a package. So it's a flavor of packaging that is more geared towards ISVs. So with DCPs, it is not only possible for you to put net new metadata into a package. We thought about this. So we'll enable it to pull in metadata that already exists in your production org and start putting it in a DCP. And the best thing about this is you can do this in an iterative fashion. You don't need to do this in one shot. You can build it slowly. And as you're doing it, you will get to a stage where you have a set of packages that you have built homegrown, and then you have a set of metadata that's still available in unpackaged metadata. So let me pause here for a minute and show you a couple of things. Let me move to the demo mode and show some of these things in action. And what you have here is a production org where you can see I've not installed any package. And when you get to the app manager, I'm just playing here the role of a developer of Acme Inc. So I have a few in-house apps. I've built the Dreamhouse app, the fitness app for my employees. And if you go and look at the metadata, they're all present here in an unpackaged format. What I mean by that is, you know that the aerobic exercise controller is an Apex class for the fitness app and the bot controller is for the Dreamhouse app, but there is no containment here for you to really sense that this belongs to a particular set of packages. And the same thing applies to Lightning components. I have a bunch of Lightning components, but there is no clear demarcation. The first step and we will have blog posts and information about this. The first step that you will do is identify the set of metadata that belongs to the particular package that you want to create. So here, our recommendation is that you go vertically, that is, you look at an app. So in this case, I've come up with a package.xml that represents the Dreamhouse app. So my first step is to pull this metadata from the production org into the Salesforce DX format. And the way I do that is I go back to the Salesforce CLI, and you can see that now when you look at my source, it's empty, I don't have anything, but I do have a file for package.xml that represents the Dreamhouse app. So the first thing that I'll do is I'm going to do a retrieve. So this is the metadata retrieve that you're familiar with. So here I'm saying, go to this production org and retrieve the metadata that is specified in my package.xml. And when I do that, we are connecting to this production instance, and we are doing a one-time pull of the metadata that represents the Dreamhouse app. And once I retrieve this metadata, I'm in a stage to now convert it to Salesforce DX format and build a new package off of it. So if I now go back to this folder where I retrieved it and do you can see that I have the unpackaged thing. I'll go ahead and unzip this, and that will pull in all the metadata. But this metadata is still in metadata API format. So the next thing that I will do is I will go back and convert this. Let me clear my screen so that you can see what I'm doing. So when I do a convert, what I'm saying here is convert this metadata from MD API format to the Salesforce DX format. And when I do that, the metadata is converted. So now if I switch back and show you in VS Code, you're familiar with this format where the metadata is transmitted into Salesforce DX format. Now the good thing is at this stage, the metadata has been converted. I'm ready to work with the Salesforce DX metadata, which is something that you've been doing already. But you can take this to the next step and say you will build a developer control package using this. And to show you how easy it is to create a new package, all I'm going to do here is I'm saying I want to create a new package. And you can see that the package itself is a top level item, so there is no metadata associated with it. I'm saying that I want to create a Dreamhouse Spring 18 package, and I'm providing some options, and I'll go ahead and create the package. At this stage, when the package is created successfully, I get a unique ID, which we call the package ID. We'll automate this in the next iteration so that you don't have to do this, but you go back to the Salesforce DX project.json. As a one-time step, you will enter this package ID. At this stage, you're ready to create the package version. And you might be wondering, how am I creating the package version? Where is the metadata for this? And the metadata here is the same Salesforce DX metadata that you're working with. So I'm specifying that create a package version for me using the Force app metadata that is present already. So I'll go ahead and create the package version. This package version takes a bit of time to create, so I don't want to sit and wait here. But one thing that I want to highlight here is if I can go here and take this, I can query the status of this. And in this case, it will show that this package version creation is still in progress. But before this demo, I'd already created a version of this package. So if we come here, this is the command that I'm issuing to install the package. So in a normal cycle, I'll install this in a Scratch org. I'll do a lot of CI. I'm just fast tracking this and saying that it has passed all the testing, and now I'm ready to install this back in the production org. And at this stage, you might be wondering, why are you installing this package back in the production org? Doesn't it already have the metadata? Yes, but to go back to what I showed a few minutes ago, the whole intention here is to do this migration from the unpackaged world to the packaged world, which is what I'll be showing now. So here, I'm saying that I want to install this particular package that has passed all testing into this org. The 040 ID is the ID that is issued every time I create a new package version. This is the immutable artifact that I was referring to, where once we create the package version, you cannot change it. So although you can keep iterating on the package, by giving you the immutable package version, you can now install it in different environments and be certain that you're testing the same stuff. So at this stage, I'll go ahead and install this package. I want to show you how this looks. So I'm not refreshing my screen here. As I showed, most of this was in an unpackaged state. So now let me go ahead and refresh this page. When I refresh this page, what you will see is, as part of the install command that I issued, a new Dreamhouse package has been created. We have not changed the metadata. The metadata is still the same, but we have moved the metadata under this package. And the way you know this is, if you come here and now say, show me the components, you'll see that all the components that I pulled in from the package.xml is now part of this package. And you might still be wondering at this stage, so what's the big deal? I just moved it from wherever it was on the package, nothing got changed. What am I getting out of this? And let's just dive into one thing and see. So here you'll see that I'm looking at the same, at a Lightning bundle that came as part of this package, and it says here, this is editable. But since it's part of a package, if you make a change and you don't communicate it to your development team, the next version will not contain these changes. So you get a very well-regulated process whereby the changes made with the development team always wins, but the admins still have the ability to make changes as long as they communicate it. So now, if I go and start looking at the set of Lightning components or the set of Apex classes in my org, what you'll start seeing is the components that belong to a DCP shows with an icon so that you know that these things belong to a package, but you still know that you have some metadata that is still left in an unpackaged state, which you might put in another package, which is the fitness management package. So this way, you will slowly start moving things from the current world into the world of DCPs, get all the advantages of Salesforce DX, the iterative model, the modular development. And the great thing about this is you don't have to do this in one shot. You can do it in a slow manner, learn from this process, and iterate over this. Now, let me go back to the slides. And to wrap this up, one thing I want to highlight is that when it comes to Salesforce DX, it's not an all or none model. You can adopt things gradually. You can start with the Salesforce CLI. You can start using scratch orgs. And once you become familiar, you can start taking advantages of the modular development model that is being offered as part of DCPs. And also, I want to spend the next 30 seconds talking about what's on the near-term horizon for Salesforce DX.
That.
So developer control packages that we announced as open beta, we want to take it to GA in summer 18. You may already be participating in an org shape pilot. We are re-architecting it, and we plan to take it to beta or GA in the upcoming releases. Sandbox cloning, that's open beta, is scheduled to go GA soon. And we'll continue to make enhancements in Apex. And one of the things that we have heard repeatedly is the absence of a switch statement, so our engineers are working hard on it. This, in a nutshell, is what we're looking at. In terms of what's the best place for you to interact with us, one of the things that I want to highlight is the Trailblazer community. We have two Trailblazer communities, one for Salesforce DX, another one for packaging. We are having a lot of interactions there. There's a lot of collaboration that happens. You ask questions, you get responses from the community. We chime in. We really, really encourage that you participate in these communities.
You're on there, right?
Yes, we are all there.
Great. Yeah, you're not super active on Twitter, but you are really, really active on the Trailblazer community.
Yes.
So I will say, if you do have questions for Dilip, go to these Trailblazer communities.
And the good thing there is, everyone learns from it, because when we post a response, people can search on it, and there's a rich history of information that's available. So
for sure.
we highly encourage that you join this community.
Well, there's also something that we just confirmed yesterday, right?
Yes.
So I'm happy to share that we will be doing a Salesforce DX Ask Me Anything session. So keep your eye on the on your inbox, and we'll have you as well as Wade and John and Dave. So we'll have a whole crew of Salesforce DX product managers, experts, here to ask any old questions that you'll have on Salesforce DX.
We'd love to hear from you.
But what if you're just getting started? What about these modules that we have here on the screen?
So we have a set of Trailhead modules that will help you get started with Salesforce DX. We are also working on a module for developer control packages in the next few weeks. We plan to launch them. And these Trailhead modules are a really good mechanism for you to get started. Get to the Trailblazer community, finish your Trailhead modules, come to us with questions. We'll be more than happy to help you.
Great. We're getting a few questions in here, so I'm just taking a moment to take a look at them. We also have questions for you two, but we'll kick off here because there's just so much. Everyone's very curious about Salesforce DX, so I'm really glad we have this AMA coming up in early February to take care of anything we can't answer right now. The first one here is, who is Salesforce DX for? Can admins use it as well as developers?
So I did touch upon this a little bit. So if you looked at the whole demo that I showed, if you're a Salesforce admin, you have the opportunity with Salesforce DX and developer control packages for you to make changes as long as you work closely with the development team. So when we envisioned Salesforce DX, we were very clear that we fully understand that when it comes to Salesforce, there is a declarative aspect to it and there's a programmatic aspect to it. And Salesforce DX embraces both of them. We still support heartily the org-based development model using sandboxes. We love the declarative tools and all the stuff that Renee and Zane demoed in terms of Lightning in setup. So the answer is Salesforce DX is not only programmatic, it supports both declarative and programmatic, and we think about admins as much as we think about developers.
That's great to hear. So, I mean, this way of working, I think, is appealing to everybody.
Yep.
So we have a question here also for you. Can developers roll back developer-controlled packages?
We do. So there are two ways in which you can do that. One, if you install the version 2 on top of 1.0, you can roll back and install 1.0. The other thing that we are building as part of Summer 18 is the ability to remove a component from developer control. You can already do that, but again, the short answer to this is when you start playing with developer control packages, even in Spring 18, you'll see that removing components is almost as easy as adding components. We thought this through because we understand that in many scenarios, you would want a lot of flexibility in terms of making changes. So the answer is yes.
That is a very good yes. That is the deepest yes we've heard all day. So another question, hot off the Twitters, is will code in developer-controlled packages count against your Apex code limit?
Yes, it would. We consider, yes, it should count against limits, but if there are any concerns, let us know why that would be concerning and we can respond to that. But yes, it is. This code is belonging to your organization,
it's still your
so it does count.
Okay.
Sad face.
So I've got a question here for Zane. So the question is, it's regarding Lightning. It's regarding Flow. So I can embed custom Lightning components in my Flow, but can I add Flow to my custom Lightning components?
So what you can do is you can incorporate custom Lightning components in Flow as screens. And we all know that Flow has many different parts. You can make decisions and assign variables and update records. And so right now the support for Lightning components is on the screen element. So to think about trying to put a flow inside a screen element is making more work for yourself. And what you can do is put your Lightning components into a bigger flow. And we have a great sample app, Purallo, shows you an example of, okay, how can I take that screen and then incorporate it into a flow? And if you have other questions, there's also the great Trailblazer community around Lightning Flow, and you can ping with them with ideas about where you want to see it going in further enhancements, because I know that this is a new capability, and there's more to come.
So what you're saying is blog posts plus reference apps plus Trailblazer community equals vast success.
Yes.
So let's see here. I've got one for you, Renee. It's the question is, can Einstein Platform Services be used in managed packages?
Oh, for sure. You can use Einstein Platform Services in managed packages, also soon in DCPs. The only thing that you have to be aware of is that if you want to share that across multiple orgs, you also have to share the authentication credentials for that. So it's a better recommendation to share the data set itself than just sharing model IDs, an example, in a managed package. But technically it's possible.
Great. But technically it's possible. Yeah. Great, thank you. So the next question we have here is for Dilip. It's if an admin makes a change to a component in a package but forgets to tell the dev team, I mean, that would never happen. Never. But in the universe where that happens, will there be a way for the developer to pull these changes back in, like a force source pull?
We are actively designing and thinking about how some of these things happen, because the first thing that we thought of when we came up with this was what happens if an admin forgets to tell the developer. So currently in the Spring 18 version, those changes get lost, but we're thinking about ways in which we can surface that information. We'd love to hear from the community as to how they think it should work. One of the things that we're thinking of is the changes will be made by the admin in the sandbox, and we can track those changes and notify the development team so that the changes are not overwritten. So short answer is we are actively designing it, but we'd love to hear from the community.
Right. So it's definitely on your radar. It's definitely something you're taking care of.
Yep.
We just don't know when, but it's happening.
Yes, yes. You can say that.
Let's see. We've got another question for all y'all. So this I'll just throw it open to everybody. Whoever jumps in first gets to answer. Version control is a new concept for many admins out there. Do any of you have recommendations for getting training or help with learning version control?
There are great resources actually about this on Trailhead.
Exactly.
There are some great modules about getting started with thinking about things in version control, working with Git, and working with GitHub. So it's something that if we want, we could maybe add it to our trail mix for this broadcast.
Well, there you go. So is there a Trailhead module on developer-controlled packaging? That's another question we've got here.
So as part of Spring 18, we are actively working on it. So in the next few weeks, we'll be launching that Trailhead module.
Great. That's I love hearing about that, and we'll be making a lot of noise about that when it is released.
Yep.
I've got another one here for Renee. Should we be saying Einstein?
I keep how it's to be said Einstein, but that's totally up to you.
Okay. So if I start saying Einstein, it's okay?
Totally fine for me. That's
okay,
great.
I'm going to do that from now on. But how can I, seriously though, how can I get access to the Einstein Playground?
So it's an open source project on GitHub. When you follow the reference link that you put in the presentation, that's leading to the blog post about object detection, that has also a reference to the GitHub project. Or you look just up Einstein Playground on GitHub and you will find it. Okay. And it's also referenced on several blog posts on our developer blog anyway.
In all the blog posts, great.
Yes.
Thank you. So I guess the other question we have here is for you, Dilip. Can an object exist in multiple packages? How do I decide if shared objects such as contact or account go in package 1 or package 2?
So it's a given piece of metadata belongs to a single developer control package. The way you'll handle this is through dependency. So for instance, if you have a set of shared objects, you'll put those shared objects in one DCP and make other developer control packages depend on that. We consider things like account and contact to be standard entries so that you don't put them in a package. But for example, if you add a custom field to account, and if you build a set of customizations around Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, right, you might make that itself a developer control package.
So those commonly shared objects that might belong to 2 or 3 apps, we could make a utility package.
Yeah, absolutely, yes, and then start layering this up. And that's one of the reasons why we feel when you start thinking about the happy soup or the unpackaged metadata and start breaking it down, it's a bit of a science and an art because it depends on how you see things. But that's the whole reason why we built the dependency framework, because we started thinking about shared entities, library packages, and yeah, the dependency framework should support that.
Okay, great, thank you. So the next question I have here is for you, Zane, and the question is, how will themes affect the branding or colors I've chosen for my existing Lightning apps?
Yeah, so the theme that you choose for your org, you can have one active theme at a time. And if you have chosen colors and icons and other things for a specific Lightning app, there's actually now an option when you go into the Lightning App Manager to choose if you want to override your organization's active theme for that app. So each app can have its own look and feel if that's appropriate, or it can take the theming for your org. You have flexibility.
Great. That's great. That is a lovely level of control.
Yeah,
it's so much more than was there before, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think let's look through the questions here. We have another one for Dilip. what is the difference between unmanaged packages and developer-managed packages?
That's a great question. So unmanaged package, if you really look at it, it's just for a point-in-time deployment. You put together a set of metadata, put it in an unmanaged package, you install it. But you cannot upgrade unmanaged packages. And we fully realize that if you deploy something to your production instance, chances are very high that you want to continuously iterate on that. So developer control packages provide that capability. Put it very crudely, I would say DCPs are upgradable unmanaged packages. Right? And that's a huge piece that was missing in unmanaged packages, due to which it is not that useful. With DCPs, the whole fact is you can iterate on it, you can version it, you can upgrade, and that makes a whole difference.
Great, thank you. That's a great answer. There's another nomenclature question for you here. It is, are developer-controlled packages packaging 2.0?
I would say, as I showed in my slide, it's one of the two key flavors of packaging, second-generation packaging, the other one being the new packaging framework that we're building for Salesforce partners. So if you're a customer, if you're anybody that is not developing your app for AppExchange, you'd be looking at developer control packages or DCPs.
Oh, okay, thank you. So the next one here, there's a lot, is can our existing package orgs be upgraded to developer-controlled packages?
So packaging orgs is primarily for Salesforce partners when they work with first-generation packaging. So it's not a very relevant thing in the context of DCPs. So if you're a Salesforce partner, we've done a lot of things for you to work with your current first-generation packages with Salesforce DX. We think you should continue to do that until we take the ISV flavor of second-generation packages to GA. But developer control packages are for customers that are currently not using packages, that can use packages for modular development.
Okay, thank you. The next question we have here is for Zane, and it's what's the difference between a base component and a standard component?
Yeah, so that's actually something that the Lightning Component Library really can help with, because it's a bit confusing to track all of the different pieces when we talk about Lightning components. And so base Lightning components are going to have the Lightning namespace. It's going to be Lightning : and card, Lightning : badge. That's an easy way to recognize them. And they inherit styling from the Salesforce Lightning design system. That's why we call them base components, because there's a baseline of styling that you don't have to worry about. And they really are those complex pieces of UI that you can build quickly because of that styling and because of the work that we provide for you. And other components, whether we're calling them standard components or force components, are coming from those different namespaces, Aura or force or UI. And if you have trouble remembering all of that, you can just go look it up in the component library.
Well, thank you for that. Unfortunately, that's about as much time as we have for questions today. Thanks again for bearing with us and a little bit of a hiccup we had in the beginning of this broadcast. But if you did have any further questions or wanted to explore this more, go ahead and go where to learn more for Spring 18 for developers, and you can explore the Spring 18 trail mix. You know what? I'm just going to talk about why Renee has this wig on. Renee, I think this wig looks pretty familiar. I think we saw this quite a lot in a certain developer keynote for Spring 18.
Exactly, Dreamforce, right, yeah.
And in that, you were talking about, or you were demonstrating the vast power of the Pure Allo demonstration.
Exactly.
And you will be around again for Trailhead DX, is that right?
Yes, very soon-ish, right? 80 days?
Right.
Something like that, yes. And we will be at a large Salesforce Developer Conference happening in March, and you should all come.
Yes.
Definitely.
But first, you should take the Spring 18 Trail Mix. We're showing the URL here if you want to hop on the internets and take that particular trail mix. It discusses all of the badges that we have talked about today. And don't forget to take our survey and tell us if you want to see more people in wigs in future broadcasts. And our early bird pricing is only lasting for a few more days. So be sure to lock in your $599 pricing. That comes with 2 free certifications, or $2,599 for the ultimate bootcamp which is 3 full days of certification training. So once again, thank you all. Thank you to our panelists. And thanks again. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.